I have been over here hard at work during streams, trying to get some work done on this town, but I wanted to take a break away to talk to you about some game mechanics, because we covered a lot of game mechanics stuff in various videos, but I didn't really dedicate a lot of videos to it. So I've had the urge to talk about mob spawning on Bedrock Edition, and a lot of people don't really understand how it's different than Java Edition and really what's going on. So let's spend a little bit of time on this. I am going to be freestyling this. I did not plan this episode out in advance, so hopefully I hit all of the points, but in typical Prowl fashion, I probably will miss some small stuff. So if I miss anything, or you can think anything else important to add, comment section is down below. You know what to do. Put your comment in. So the first thing to understand when it comes to spawning mobs in the game is there is a limit to which the game will spawn mobs into the game. And please excuse my what looks like unenchanted gear. It's actually enchanted. I'm just using one of those packs that I showed you guys in the last episode where it doesn't show the enchantment glint. But the game does have different types of mob caps and restrictions to keep too many mobs from spawning into the game. Now, these are very different between Bedrock and Java Edition, but Bedrock, one of the things that happens here is there is a difference between mobs that spawn on the surface, meaning you look up and there's no solid blocks above you. Leaves are not a solid block, for example, or in a cave. You look up and there are solid blocks above you. Doesn't matter how many solid blocks are above you when it comes to cave spawns. Just the fact that you're in what is called a quote unquote cave or under a solid block makes a mob a cave spawn. And there are different values assigned to these, and even it can be different per different dimension. Also, on top of that, just the way that the game spawns mobs in is different. On Bedrock Edition, the game actually tries to start spawning mobs on the top layer and works its way down. So typically, the deeper down you get into a cave, when there's other layers above you, you're actually less likely to find mobs, because what's going to happen is the game is going to start at the tippy top, and then it's going to try to spawn mobs in those top caves first and work its way down to the lower ones. So in a scenario like in Caves and Cliffs, for example, the deeper and deeper you get down into the caves, likely the less and less mobs that you're going to see, because they're going to be filling up above you, because that's where they're preferring to spawn. Java Edition actually works from the opposite perspective. It tries or attempts to spawn mobs in from the bottom, and then it works its way up. So the further down you are in the world, did I hear a noise? The further down you are in the world, the more dangerous that the spawns are going to be, because there's just going to be more of them. On top of that, the game on Java Edition, and I'm not sure the exact inner workings behind it, but the way I explain it to people is on Java Edition, the game actually tries to like rush to spawn mobs in. It does it very quickly. It'll fill the mob cap in seconds, whereas on Bedrock Edition, it'll actually take a little bit of time. The game doesn't seem to be in that rush or hurry to fill the mob cap, but it tries to do it more, I don't know what word to use. It tries to do it in like a slower and more spread out fashion. So once you know that there's a difference between surface spawns and cave spawns, the next thing to know is the size, area, and number of which mobs can spawn in. And that sounds super confusing, so we're going to make some sort of grid here to show you, but we're going to be talking in terms of chunks. If you don't know what a chunk is, it'll make a little bit more sense here in a couple moments once I get this grid laid out. Okay, this took a lot more time and effort and materials than I thought I was going to, but we got it. We got it done. This, you're probably looking at this, you're like, what in the world is Prowl doing? He's lost his mind. No, this is a spawning grid, and this was going to be the easiest way that I could show you how spawning works in Bedrock Edition. So the way that things work is this little green square right there in the middle is going to represent a mob. Pick random mob. There's a zombie there, whatever, right? Within a 4 chunk radius of that mob, and these are all chunks. They are 16 across, a big square. And they're on specific coordinates. They're multiples of 16. You guys saw in my last episode, the chunk border pack. There are other ways to find and determine where chunks are too, if you don't have or can't get a border pack. But that's for another video, or maybe you can look that up on the YouTubes. but we're not going to go over all the ways to find chunks today. But just to kind of return to what we were talking to, from this location, any given chunk, when mobs try to spawn, they check for two things. The first thing is they have a density check area. Density in this term is quite literal. They're looking to see how dense is the mob population in this area. So if a mob tries to spawn inside of this chunk, it's going to check this whole area to see how many mobs are inside of it. Now, right now, on the surface in the overworld, the cap is 8 mobs. So if 0 through 7 mobs exist in this whole area and a mob tries to spawn in there, the spawn is going to succeed. You'll have your 8th mob spawn in. If there are 8 or more mobs within this area and a mob tries to spawn in here, the spawn is going to fail because it checked the density of the area and it saw that the area is too densely populated with mobs. Therefore, it will not spawn a mob. Now, this density cap all the way up until right now where we're playing has been 8 for the caves too. But in Caves and Cliffs Part 2, coming out here in a few days, that changes. The density cap underground changes to 16. Actually, I think that hit the most recent release here on Bedrock Edition. So if I'm not mistaken, that's actually live right now, actually. So 16 mobs can appear or spawn underground. So 8 plus 16. So technically you can have a total of 24 mobs alive within this density check area. And at that point, mobs stop spawning. 8 on the surface, 16 underground. In the Nether, that number is just 16. It is 16, whether it's the caves, quote unquote caves, or underground, because technically in the Nether, you're always underground. So they just gave you 16 mobs to deal with in the Nether. And then finally, in the end, you can have up to 10 mobs on the surface and 8 in the caves. Keep in mind, we're specifically talking about hostile mobs here. Different mob types have different caps. Also, there is a world cap limit of 200. So especially if you're in a multiplayer world or you're even in a single player world and you have a lot of mobs that you have collected in one area for whatever the reason may be, your global cap is 200. There are very few things that are exempt from that global cap, but there are some things exempt from the global cap. So let's visualize a little bit further. As I fall down here, I've come with examples. So just to make sure everybody understands, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 total mobs in this area right now. And look how spread out they can be. 1, I think I can see it right there. 2, 3, 4, 5. Look, I placed these down and I almost can't even find them because they're so spread apart, right? And there is a view distance limit too to where you can see entities. I don't know if maybe I just can't see them all, but it proves my point even further that if you were to have 8 mobs, so I need to go to sleep here. Where's the bed? Anyways, it kind of proves the point here that if you have only 8 mobs in a density check area, that means in this huge area, you only have a few potential mobs walking around, and that's all you're going to have. This is why when you play Bedrock Edition, you don't see a lot of mobs around. This density cap prevents it from happening. So right now, only one other mob can spawn in this area. So if it spawns right here, that's it. Cap is full. No other mobs will spawn. Now, this is a little bit of a problem on the surface. It's even more of a problem in the caves because, as you can imagine, caves are layered with a whole bunch of levels where mobs can spawn. I've been in this cave before. That's weird. Mobs can spawn up here, right? Then they can spawn some up in there. Some, if there was an aisleway down there, some down there, some down there. Next thing you know, there's 8 or even 16 mobs in all of these different areas, typically higher up in the air than they are down below. And you're running around the caves and you can't find any mobs. And you'll rarely see one. Every once in a while, you'll run across one. Why? Because they're spawned everywhere else in the caves. There's so many spots in caves for mobs to spawn, and this is just going to increase in caves and cliffs. You're never going to see mobs, guys. You are, but there's not going to be a lot of them. It's not going to be like Java Edition where you feel like you're in danger and you have to be really careful. It doesn't work like that on Bedrock Edition because of this density cap. So what can be done? Well, what if the density cap area was smaller? What if it didn't check out 1, 2, 3, 4 chunks, this big, huge radius? What if it only checked out 1, 2, 3, and it checked a smaller area? Or what if it checked out only 1, 2? It only came out two chunks around, and that was the density check area. Then you could have your 8 mobs packed kind of right in here-ish, and then you'll have some more over here, some more over here, and over here. Next thing you know, your world is dangerous again. Also, that means a lot more mobs you'll find down in the caves. Also, what if instead of only being 8, what if it was 12 or 16 or something like that on the surface as well? That would also help. Hard for me to say and know what the exact right numbers are. That would really require some testing by the developers and maybe in the beta, but better numbers or figures exist. Now, getting beyond that, why is it important to know this? Let's go over to a mob farm and see how this works in a practical sense. Here, not only do we have annoying particle effects that are going to drive me crazy, but we have, oh, why is there always, I'm still finding bird poop this late. I'm going to get that pesky bird. I can't even reach it. There we go. I got some of it. We cleaned some. Oh, can I get it? No. Anyways, before we were so rudely interrupted by BlujayGames droppings, we're here at a mob farm. So what's the practical reason why we do things the way that we do them in a mob farm? Well, first of all, I have mobs spawning in here. I have 16 spawning on all of the lower levels, and then I have 8 that are spawning on this upper level right here. So 8 are spawning just below there because that's considered the surface. We have tricked the game into thinking it's the surface. I don't need to go over that. That's in the mob farm video if you'd like to go back and check it out. And then all of the levels below the top level are quote unquote the caves where we can have 16 mobs spawn. So there's reasons why this design happens, guys. This isn't by accident. It's not up in the air just to look pretty. It's up in the air because that's the easiest way to do things. Remember, we can only have 8 and 16 mobs spawn within that big grid area you saw earlier. So how are we getting mobs to spawn in there, right? Well, first of all, this little area we've made up here, it's totally lit up. No mobs can spawn here because the light level's too high. That's thing number one. Even over there, which is probably close enough to spawn mobs, right? Can't spawn mobs because everything's lit up. Second, we're way up in the air. We're really up high. And mobs only spawn within a certain radius of the player. They only spawn, if you're on a simulation distance 4 world, they only spawn 44 blocks away or less. I play on a simulation distance 12 realm. The 4 and the 12 refer how many chunks away. Remember, we talked about chunks. I'm in a simulation distance 12 world. Mobs can spawn up to 128 blocks away from me. So you'll notice that if you take 191 and subtract 128, what are you going to get? You're going to get sea level, my friends. Sea level is where you'll be. That means that while I'm standing up there, no mobs can spawn anywhere outside of 128 blocks around me. Well, there's no blocks within 128 blocks around me that mobs can spawn because everything here is lit up. And I'm high enough from the ocean to keep me away from having mobs spawn down there. If you were to try to build this exact same thing right there, well, unless you put torches everywhere above ground and below ground, either that 44 block radius or the 128 block radius, depending on your sim distance, mobs are going to spawn just like in the example I gave you guys with the armor stands earlier. That's why mob farms are easiest to put in the sky, because you get away from all the spawning locations for free. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 because you don't have to spawn proof everything with torches like you would if you made the farm down there. So you can still make this type of farm down there. That's fine. It's just going to be a lot of work because you have to light every potential spawning location. And in the caves, technically you have to put slabs or buttons or something down too, because slimes don't care about the light when it comes to spawning, and they can take up your mob cap too. There's a lot of factors. So ultimately, where should you put your mob farms? Way up in the sky. Is it better to put them in the sky in Bedrock Edition than it is in Java Edition? Yes, because remember, spawning happens from the top down on Bedrock. Spawning happens from the bottom up on Java. On Java Edition, if they want the fastest farms, they dig all the way down to the lowest level they can, and they make their mob farms down there because that's where the fastest spawns are, which means they have to spawn proof everything. Whereas us, we can put it up here, and it's just as efficient as it would be down there, but it's easier to make, which is totally awesome. So that sums up most of the technical aspects of mob farming, of density cap and mob spawning and that sort of thing, there's a lot of other little factors too. Things like caps for individual types of mobs. Did you know that creepers, only 5 creepers can spawn within that density check area at a time on the surface? But it's still unlimited. It's unlimited for the number of creepers you can have in the caves. Also, things like the ghast, for example. You can only have 2 ghasts in a density check area. They do that to keep it so there's not 5,000 ghasts shooting at you at all times in the nether. A lot of fish have their own separate caps too, just to make sure that things don't get out of control. So there's all those things. Remember, there's the 200 general mob cap, and there's also mob caps for passive mobs, which are different. They're separate from hostile mobs. Things like cows, sheep, that sort of thing, all have their own separate cap too. Now, also another thing to keep in mind is there's some things that don't count against your density cap. Mobs that come from a mob spawner, your piglins that come out of the portal, nether portals, and mobs that you, like passive mobs that you breed, chickens, cows, that sort of thing, they're not going to go against your density cap because you made them. So if you have a cow pen and you make a whole bunch of cows, that's fine. It's not going to go against your density cap. It's still going to count against your world cap though. It'll still let you keep making cows beyond the 200 mob cap, but new mobs will not spawn if you have that 200 cap filled in that sort of a way. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of other little factors. You can go to the Minecraft wiki, the unofficial Minecraft wiki. A lot of this information is there under spawning. So if you want to learn more, go there, or just check out the comment section down below, because I'm sure a lot of people will also share a lot of their additional information that they know about mob caps and that sort of thing as well. But I thought it would be good for you to understand how Bedrock Edition works, because see, Java Edition is completely different. Java Edition, let's say this whole map is your spawning area, and Java's mob cap for a individual player is 70. If you're standing right here in the center and mobs can spawn all through here, it'll fill up 70 mobs. Just first of all, instantly. Second of all, it won't really care how close or far away they are. So you could have 70 mob, you can have all of this area around here, say, lit up around you, and have a little bit of a spawning area right here. All 70 mobs, they'll spawn right there, and they'll spawn in pretty darn fast because of how different Java Edition is. That's why their mob farms and things are faster. They can have 70 mobs inside of the same area that we can only have 8. And it's technically 8 plus 16, and they spawn in at a rate that's about 6 to 10 times faster. So just, yeah, can we have some of that? I'd like to have some of that, please. In any event, I appreciate everybody hanging out today. Hopefully these technical episodes are helpful and you like them. If you do, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I've been saying it the last few episodes. I'll say it again. We are pulling in subscribers at a record pace. So if you click that subscribe button, you'll be jumping on the proud bandwagon, and there is no bandwagon better. Also, click that thumbs up button, because that's awesome. The thumbs up button is totally sweet. You should try clicking it. It makes you feel good. It really does. I promise. Don't smash it though. Don't smash the button, because that breaks it. Just show it a little bit of love. And follow me on Discord. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram and whatever other areas, my website, all the stuff in the description down below. Go check all the areas and stuff and things. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next time. If you're looking to see more Bedrock Guide episodes, there's not going to be a ton of productive episodes between now and release of 1.18, but I'm streaming pretty much daily at this point. So I'll see you in stream. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later. Bye.